De conformidad con el artículo 39 del Reglamento Provisional del Consejo, invito al señor Karim Asad Ahmad Khan, asesor especial del equipo de investigaciones establecido en virtud de la resolución 2379 del Consejo de Seguridad, a participar en esta sesión. Así queda acordado. El Consejo de Seguridad iniciará ahora el examen del tema 2 del orden del día. Deseo señalar a la atención de los miembros del Consejo el documento S/2019/40007, que contiene una carta de fecha 17 de mayo de 2019 dirigida al presidente del Consejo de Seguridad por el asesor especial y jefe del equipo de investigaciones de las Naciones Unidas para promover la rendición de cuentas por los crímenes del Estado Islámico en el Irak y el Levante, Daesh. Doy ahora la palabra al señor Karim Asad Ahmad Khan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And if I may I start by congratulating Peru on its presidency of the Council this month. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, it is indeed an honour to present the second report of UNITAD to this august body. From the outset of our work in Iraq, we have sought to ensure that the experiences and the voices of survivors, witnesses and communities are placed right at the centre of our work. These survivors come from all communities across Iraq. All communities have been impacted in some way, shape or form by the crimes of Daesh. And their message has been clear and consistent. Their demand is a simple one, but it goes to the heart of the mandate. ISIL must be held responsible for the crimes that were committed. In Mosul to Tikrit, from Erbil, Duhok, and Sinjar, and elsewhere in Iraq, victims have given harrowing accounts to our team of mass killings, of whole families being wiped out, and women and children taken as slaves. The courage of these individuals have demonstrated in coming forward to Daesh and giving their accounts has underlined in very real terms both their commitment to justice and their heroism and the urgency with which we at UNITAD must work together if we are to fulfill the hopes and the aspirations and the promise that was made by this Council in Resolution 2379 back in September of 2017. Mr. President, perhaps most striking, to me at least, has been that when I have engaged with these victim communities amongst the various components of Iraq, their message is not one seeking revenge, it's not one seeking reprisals, it is one seeking justice. Justice not as an abstract, but justice based upon proper, solid evidence, without hearsay and gossip, but based on evidence that can be presented in a court of law and subject to challenge so that independent and impartial judges may make determinations that will stand the test of time. The resilience and the fortitude of the people of Iraq from all communities needs to be applauded right at the outset. It is only, Mr. President, by fair trials that the corrupt and perverted ideology of Daesh, its most un-Islamic of practices, can be fully and completely exposed in a manner that will brook no answer at all. Over the last 6 months, we have sought to harness our resources and this unity of purpose that we've seen in Iraq and in the Council in the most effective way. And I'm pleased to report that since my last briefing to the Council, a very significant process has been made. We are now receiving evidence and information, digital, electronic, witness statements, documentary, in line with the investigative strategy that I detailed in my last report. The team is expanding rapidly. At the beginning of the year, we had 10 members of staff that were UNITAD. As of today, we have 79 members of staff from all geographical regions of the United Nations, and in line with the policy of the Secretary General of gender parity, I'm extremely pleased to announce that more than 55% of my team are female, and more than 50% of the senior leadership of UNITAD is also female. In May of this year, I was delighted, together with His Excellency the Prime Minister of Iraq, to announce my appointment of Dr. Salama Hussein Al-Kafaji, and she sits just behind me. I really want to take this opportunity publicly in this council room to applaud Dr. Salama Al-Kafaji for her extraordinary commitment to the rule of law and to justice. Already, her experience, her wise counsel, and her sincere efforts to deliver accountability has made a meaningful contribution to the team. And her appointment shows in a very vivid and obvious manner the support of the government of Iraq, and how harnessing the quality, the ability and the experience of the people of Iraq, we can complement investigative capacity within Iraq and hopefully feed evidence also into other court systems of other member states. In April 2019, we were fortunate in leaving the hotel where we were based and then the engineering compound in the UNIMI premises, and we have our own facilities where we can safely store our material and the evidential work product that we generate. Importantly also, we have now VTC facilities so that we can transmit, use our officers to transmit testimony into the courts of Iraq, but also the courts more immediately of other member states. I want to, Mr. President, thank UNAMI and the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Iraq for their constant support as we moved from a startup entity into the operational stage of our work. All along, we have been endeavoring to move this mandate from the paper of the resolution 2379 into something concrete. And we've done that initially by focusing on three main areas. Firstly, in the Sinjar area, the attacks against the Yazidi communities. Secondly, in Mosul, which is, as I've said repeatedly, a microcosm in many respects of the crimes of Daesh. We see in Mosul the crimes against religious minorities, against women and children. We see crimes of sexual slavery and crimes of sexual and gender-based violence. And thirdly, we have been focusing on this awful massacre at Tikrit Academy in June 2014. The team is preparing evidentiary files with respect to a broad category of other crimes. And this is important because all communities, as I said at the outset, have been targeted by Daesh. There was no preference or there was no mercy shown whether one was Christian or Yazidi, Shia or Sunni, Kakai or Turkmen, or Shabak for that matter. All of these communities suffered horrendously at the hands of this most un-Islamic state. In conducting the work of UNITAD, we have sought to draw on its independent and impartial status in order to engage with all actors, whether international, region, or local, so that we can get the greatest body of material and collect it in line with international standards. And this inclusive and collaborative approach is reflected in the evidence collection that we have undertaken only in the last few weeks. In the last 10 days alone, we have a team out that has been in Sinjar, in the village of Kojo, collecting evidence or supporting the Iraqi authorities to collect evidence and giving them guidelines regarding what international standards require, so that we have the greatest opportunity that evidence may feed into domestic courts in line with legal considerations. In northern Iraq, we have been conducting interviews with Yazidis and Turkmen Shia, Christians and Sunni Arabs. And very encouragingly, we've already I'm able to say, found very important evidence from individuals and witnesses that had not hitherto given a statement to any investigative entity or NGO. In addition, we have received 600,000 videos in the last 2 weeks, 15 of ISIL crimes, very relevant to our investigations, and more than 15,000 pages of insider ISIL documents that they themselves produced, which were collected from the battlefield by leading investigative journalists. I have repeatedly stated that the collection of evidence in itself does not represent satisfactorily the culmination of our work. It is not an end in itself. That needs to be really underlined. It is not sufficient for UNITAD simply to have an archive of interesting material, important though that is. To fully deliver on our mandate, we must ensure that our work contributes tangibly to domestic accountability efforts. In recognition of this imperative, the investigative team has already held in-depth discussions in recent months in order to create or identify or strengthen potential channels for evidence collected by the team to feed into domestic proceedings in a manner consistent with UNITAD's terms of reference. I'm pleased to inform the Council, Mr. President, that a number of other member states have already, at this early stage, 6 or 7 months after our deployment to Iraq, or in terms of the new year, have approached us in relation to ongoing domestic proceedings within their jurisdiction. And based on our discussions with relevant national authorities, it's my hope that within the next 2 weeks, we will be able to provide tangible support with respect to at least one ongoing case before a national court of a member state, which would mark an important milestone in the young life of UNITAD. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, our cooperation and collaboration with the government of Iraq and with Iraqi national authorities has remained crucial to the ability to deliver on our mandate. And I would take this opportunity to underline my thanks for the support that has been given to me and to UNITAD by His Excellency the President of Iraq, by the Prime Minister of Iraq, by the Foreign Minister of Iraq, by the President of the Judicial Council, and indeed by His Excellency the Permanent Representative of Iraq to the United Nations that's here today. In addition to that, the support of the Kurdish regional government has been unrelenting and extremely significant, and I would extend my thanks to the President and Prime Minister, and indeed the Deputy Prime Minister of the KRG as well, for the assistance they have provided in the formative stages of UNITAD's work. Our effective working level engagement with Iraqi and local authorities, in line with the terms of reference, has, in my respectful submission, been one of the most notable and greatest successes of UNITAD in these initial stages. Tangible evidence of this cooperation can be found in the collection of forensic material from mass grave sites in line with international standards, the transmission of evidence and case files from national and local authorities to the investigative team to ensure that our work is conducted in a manner which is complementary to ongoing domestic proceedings. And they've also facilitated, just in the last few days before I came here, my visit to some of the detention centers in Iraq. I'm also extremely grateful for the unfailing support by the relevant national security agencies and the National Operations Center, which has facilitated our mobile, nimble investigative work in the field of Iraq itself. So in short, the cooperation that the government of Iraq has extended to UNITAD thus far has been, in my considered view, has been exemplary. While significant progress has been made in the last 6 months, I would wish to underline that the ability of the team to deliver on our mandate remains dependent upon the consistent and continued support of this Council and of the international community more broadly. In this regard, we have been greatly assisted by the very generous contributions to the Trust Fund that Member States have provided to UNITAD, and we've used these funds for very good purposes. It's helped us with exhumations in the field. It's helped us purchase the leading technology for DNA analysis, drones, 3D scanners. It's been used to recruit psychological and psychosocial support for the victims. And I would like to express once again my thanks to those member states that I have particularly highlighted in the report, the written report that has been presented to you. I'm also pleased, Mr. President, to announce that in last week we were given a commitment by the UAE of another generous contribution, and the government of Qatar is planning on financing and supporting an international conference in Doha at the end of this year. Apart from financial assistance, money to the Trust Fund, gratis personnel are sorely needed. And I would like to applaud and thank the very generous contributions and the really need that's filled a need to UNITAD that have been made by Germany, Saudi Arabia, Sweden and Turkey. The latter three, Saudi Arabia, Sweden and Turkey, have promised and given commitments to provide gratis personnel to forensics and other areas. These contributions are essential not only in further strengthening our capacity to conduct effective investigations, but in reinforcing the message that this Council and the international community remains ad idem, remains united, and that the imperative of justice is not simply an incantation, but this Council and the community are committed to ensuring it is realized by way of not only proper investigations, but fair trials that will stand the test of time. Through our work in Iraq to date, through our engagement with victims, our cooperation with national and regional actors, and through dialogue with religious bodies and leaders, two fundamental truths have become apparent. The first is that despite the scale and depravity and barbarity that were unleashed by Daesh on innocent civilians, they have not succeeded in dividing the people of Iraq. Rather, the gaps that existed have been narrowed, and a great deal of unity has been created that can be, if properly harnessed, be very important not only to the future of Iraq, but to the continued fulfillment of UNITAD's mandate. The call from all people of Iraq for justice is resolute and it is clear. And the courage and strength that we have seen amongst the religious divides, across political divides, from all parts of the political spectrum and from all parts of Iraq, and most notably, the courage of survivors to come forward with unbelievable courage to recount what has befallen them, what they have seen, what they have known, has demonstrated quite eloquently the abject failing of Daesh to sow division, to sow lasting division in the territory of Iraq. Nor has Daesh succeeded in intimidating the people of Iraq into silence. And every time a witness comes to UNITAD and gives their accounts, that is a very eloquent and powerful riposte to Daesh. Second, we have understood that the ultimate success of our work will depend upon our ability to draw on our independent and impartial status to harness this unity of purpose, to make our work a product of collective endeavour between this Council and the people of Iraq, between the national authorities and local actors, between NGOs and universities. The whole of humanity, all of these groups need to come together and be harnessed. And then hopefully then we will have an opportunity to deliver on the mandate and ensure justice, not in the abstract, but by way of evidence that is collected by UNITAD that can feed into independent and impartial trials. And only if we do both parts will the full purpose of UNITAD be fulfilled. So, Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity to present the second report of the United Nations Investigative Team to promote accountability in relation to Daesh crimes.
Agradezco al señor Khan por la información que nos ha proporcionado.